Are you in?
Hi. You alright?
Oh, let me turn this up a bit. I don't know why it's so low.
Sorry, I'm still colded up, so start barking, then you know why.
I don't worry about it. I'll probably be coughing periodically myself. I'm trying to do it so I can periodically show the details on things as well. So here's Amy. I have invited you, Jen. You just need to accept it.
It's not straightforward, TikTok isn't at all.
It's really not. It's really not.
It's not, is it? I find it really...
Hey, it's a lot more straightforward than Instagram has been. That's 2 days in a row that we couldn't get connected and it played up this morning.
Oh.
Had to do the whole thing, like everything, to basically a black screen. But she could see it her side. It's just my side. I couldn't see her. So, of course, you can imagine all the visual cues that you normally have with people and interrupting each other. I was completely, like, at a loss.
Yeah, it's hard communication-wise, isn't it, when it's like that?
Yeah.
I'm just grabbing a hairband because I'm trying to cook dinner and I'm rushing to try and make sure it doesn't burn. But I can't leave my hairbands out because the cat keeps stealing them.
I've re-invited you, Jen.
Hello, I did. If I know you want my dinner, you can't have it. Oh. Probably turn the extractor off now. I've stopped burning everything. Oh. I've just done a quick cheeky Chinese stir fry.
Oh,
So
I'm
at least
after this, I think.
something. Well, I have to cook everything, you see, because I can't have garlic or onion. So
I can imagine that's quite hard with certain recipes. Oh, I love both of them.
Well, I tend to eat junk food a lot because sweet junk food contains no alliums in it at all, and I can get away with them. Yeah, sometimes you just have to leave and come back on the app again just to reset it.
Wait, I do apologise. I was trying to get Jen up on the screen as well so she can talk too. Sorry. Why I'm playing around with this? Do one of you two want to introduce what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I can start. So we are joining forces between the Wellbeing Bill and also the school fines. And that is because the bill affects both home educated kids and also school goers. So we are joining forces to oppose basically the control element of it all. And the school fines now has become a big problem because you can only receive a maximum of 2 fines in a 3-year period. And people don't seem to understand that and think that it's all about cheaper holidays, but it's not. It's about children that need to take time off, you know, because they've got special educational needs, or you've got families that have chronic conditions. Like myself, I've got rheumatoid arthritis, POTS, and a whole other list of things. So for me to take time off in the school holidays, it's difficult. and for us to access that quality family time. So everything that's happening at the moment is just a massive overstep, in my opinion. And instead of actually looking out for the well-being of the children and what is best for them, it's just causing stress and pressure to families that just want the best for their kids, really. That's my little speech.
No, that was brilliant, to be fair.
So yeah, if anybody's got any questions on either the bill or the fines, then, you know, please do shout up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have sort of said, you know, critically, that it's just about parents wanting a holiday, and it's absolutely not, is it?
No.
It's not in the slightest, no.
It's not at all. I mean, like, for instance, as well, my daughter's autistic. She's not been diagnosed yet, but she's without doubt PDA, autistic. And in January, we were really struggling with just life, because she'd come home from school and she'd have a meltdown because her needs aren't being met in school. And in January, I said, we're going to have to get away for a few days, because I need that break away from life, away from her going to school, you know, and coming home and then having this massive meltdown. So I asked both schools, because I've got two kids, they're both next door to each other. One authorised it and one didn't. And they're literally next door to each other. So it just shows the differences as well in head teachers' discretion. And the problem is they do have it, a lot are choosing not to use it. But we needed that time just to get away, and we went up to Derbyshire, because I'm from Derbyshire anyway, but we went when it was quiet. There was nobody around. It was bliss, absolutely perfect. And it really helped to just reset, because me as obviously a caregiver as well, it's hard work, isn't it, when you've got autistic children. And it just really helped us all just to reset and to feel better equipped to then deal with the future. And like I say, one authorised, one didn't. And that is just showing the disparity between the different areas. And it's not even an area, literally my schools are next door to each other, and one still authorised and one didn't. So this is what it is like, which people don't seem to see. They just think you want a cheap, all-inclusive deal to Benidorm, which is not the case at all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all that, to be fair. And obviously we've combined together because there's even more additional fines that are included in the wellbeing bill as well. So it all lumps in together really quite well. We need to challenge all of it across the board.
Yeah, definitely.
Liz, did you want to change the layout so we've not got all of the pluses?
I'm trying to do it and it's not actually letting me do it.
Oh, I had this problem before.
I don't know why.
You just push the cog and then you just swipe left or right.
20 minutes. There we go.
Hey, there you go. That's a bit better. Can see you now. I was squinting like this.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm still trying to add Jen as well, to be fair. I don't know why it's not letting us do it.
Hang on, let me just investigate. Yeah, she's got enough followers, so it's more about the fact that she probably just needs to restart the app.
Yeah, potentially. Alright, let's see. I don't know why it's playing up like this, but...
Oh, Learn Free Canada.
We keep trying.
Learn Free Canada. If you could give us all a free passport.
Do you want to try requesting me, Jen, instead of... Yeah, right there. Oh, yeah. Is it going to let me do it this time? No way. Do you want to run people through, Amy, on the schools bill?
Yeah, so the Children's Wellbeing in Schools bill, as it's now known, copy and pasted from the previous schools bill and contact point from 2008, would you believe it? But not many people know about that because, of course, in politics, everyone seems to have amnesia. And in 2008, Labour tried to bring in something called contact point. It was going to cost about £250 million in old money to bring it in. It still actually exists as an empty box on most of the local authority forms, which is absolutely hysterical, if I'm honest. Completely wasting taxpayers' money trying to bring it back in again. Only this time they're going to promise to also use AI to organise every child's data using a unique number. And Bridget Phillipson's already a deer in the headlights because she's found out she can't use the NHS number, it's illegal. So she's had to go back to the drawing board of how she's going to implement this national number for every child. Now, every child will get this number, and you say, oh, well, what's wrong with that? You've got an NHS number, you've got a national insurance number, you've got a pupil ID number. You know, what's your beef on this one? And it is specifically that it will be linked to the child for their entire career. So every time you get suspended, every single visit to the headmaster's office, even when the teacher has a bad word to say against you, any single professional can report to your national number and it will be retained for life. So you will never live down that moment when you kissed a boy and got caught and sent to the headmaster's office. Just saying. I don't particularly want that on my job reference number, and this is starting to look a lot like Gattaca for me. Now, if you haven't seen the film, go and have a quick look at the summary of it, because that seems to be what we're heading for. The academisation process was to give us a fair choice between state education and academies, and this bill lays out quite clearly that they want all schools to now be academies. But here's the spin: after selling the school to an academy trust, who will then look to try and profit off of education and the children that they've got in their care, they will have to toe the line with regards to certain legislation and caps that the government are now going to enforce on them. And one of those is actually really quite detrimental, because they're going to state what the teacher's pay grade is across the board. So teachers who are currently, you know, years and years into their career and have done extremely well and have earned a pay rise are now going to have that taken away from them, so that they're in line with the junior teachers who've only just come in and have no kind of background in education, and they're kind of learning on the job, trying to catch up. So it's not really rewarding teachers to do better or to try harder if you're taking away their opportunity to get promotions, get pay rises. What it's doing instead is standardising teaching. And we all know that kids can't be standardised, and those that don't fit that grade get pushed out. So ultimately what we've seen is a rise in home education, and as a result, government started getting nervous, going, oh no, we're not regulating home education enough. We can't have those pesky parents getting away with it. We need to force them back in the system, get them to, you know, pay all these fines and basically build our pension up. And it's quite shocking really when you see the kind of lead up to this bill, and you see things like Centre for Social Justice getting Flick Drummond to state about her children not in school register. You get Bridget Phillipson stating that when she's in there. She will fix it and she will sort it all out. And we absolutely need to have more tabs on home educators, and that's why she's bringing this unique identifier in. And then you get Rishi Sunak stood in front of exactly the same banner at exactly the same time, stating he's going to put disabled people on vouchers. And that was enough for the people. It was quite clear that he was on the way out, so he called a general election. We're all celebrating that the school's bell's dead, and that we won't have this duty to inform the local authority that we're home educating and the details of our children and our exes and whatever else. And then, of course, Labour bring this bill in, and they've just literally taken it out of the recycling bin, gone, dust it off a little bit, that will do, slap it in. And all of the consultations, all the hard work, all of the negotiations that we had with the Department for Education prior to that point were literally scrapped. So when I went into a meeting, I said to the DFE, so have you run some case studies through this? They went, no, that'd be a really good idea if we did that. I said, but it's your policy to do it. And it is really quite shocking that we're picking up on grammar errors, spelling errors, and, you know, their meeting notes don't match ours. They don't match the transcription from the meeting. And when you get to that kind of point, you start to think, well, they're not listening. They're just ignoring us, and they think that this is fun because they have a duty to consult with us, but they don't have a duty to actually listen and take in what we are saying. So we gave up with the Department for Education and we started attacking the MPs and the Lords and saying to them, you know, you need to know about this. You need to know that these changes are coming. And then, of course, February, we were on the lead up to the pupil registration regulations, which is why fight school fines then became a problem, because the regulations were changed. Parts of it were good, like the part where they said that schools now must inform the local authority if 15 days of education are missed consecutively. However, what they didn't do was put any kind of fine in for any school that's off-rolling, not telling the local authority that these children need EOTAS, and not informing the parents of certain things that are going on in schools, which is why we've now got a 7-year waiting list for certain teachers to be seen and chastised for their behaviour. I've got one down the road here in Oxford, did some absolutely horrific things to children, was found to be guilty, but there was absolutely no charges or punishment or anything on him after that point. And the system is really failing our children. Why then would we agree to have our rights taken away that can allow us to take those children out of those situations and prevent further harm from happening? Well, this bill in the home education section, which is sections 25 to 30, we look at the amount of detail that they want from home educators. We look at they're taking rights away from anyone with a child protection plan, a section 47, or anyone registered at a state maintained SEND school. So you will automatically have your educational parental rights stripped completely. You will not be allowed to deregister your child legally unless you have sought permission from local authority. And as we've all seen with potholes, local authority aren't exactly very responsive. They don't have the resources. They're not following the law. And when it comes to SEND parents and home ed parents, we aren't able to defend ourselves because there's no opportunity to go to court. Policy in local authorities can fit the local need, so they can deviate from national law. That means that each policy could potentially be illegal. The only way of actually challenging that is with something called a judicial review, which requires £30,000 in your back pocket in order to fork out and correct the local authority. Now, this for most parents is not an achievable thing, and local authorities are getting away with breaking the law as a result, because if their policy says that they're allowed to act illegally, then the local service government ombudsman don't have to act in any way against it or make any judgment, because they've acted in accordance with policy. So we find ourselves in a situation where we've gone through 70 years of bullying. Let that just sink in. 70 years of being bullied through courts, through local authority officials, and through those little spotty teenagers that have just come out of school with 2 GCSEs, no DBS check, marching into your house telling you how to raise your children. And this is actually what is happening. And people are like, but surely they're all qualified. Qualified in what? There's no qualification for home education. Home education is fitting the narrative that Section 7 states you must educate your child to their age, ability and aptitude. There's nothing standard about that. Therefore, every single home and every single child will be educated individually to meet that law. So, who is going to say whether it's suitable or not? The child, when they're grown up. And that is what happened about 5 or 6 years ago, when they discovered a yeshiva were kicking out children with no maths, no English, no English at all, like spoken. And they covered this up. All the MPs and all the other people around the local authorities were covering this up because they didn't want it to get out in the public. When it did get whistleblown, it didn't do anything. There's laws there they didn't do anything with. They didn't shut the yeshivas down because they knew they would get told off for religious prejudice. Then we started having all of this, investigation in the Labour Party as to whether they were discriminating against Jewish people. And then the Conservatives started investigating themselves for the same thing. And everyone threw around all of these different blame games, and ultimately it fell on parents to take responsibility for them covering up what they'd done. And behind closed doors, they have absolutely said that this bill is about attacking the Jewish people, the Jewish communities, because they do not like that they aren't being taught what the state want them to learn. They do not want that to happen, but they're attacking the entire community because they can't discriminate against somebody of a certain religious background because it's against the law. So what they're doing is going, oh, let's just tweak this little bit here that allows them to do that freedom bit. Let's tweak this little bit here. And bit by bit, they are pushing back and they are forcing their way into our private homes, which looks even more like Big Brother. So the bit of the bill about the right of access to your home is not a right, it's an implied right. So they will, as part of the school attendance order, come to your door, announce that they're there to do an assessment of your home. And the problem with assessments in person is that they can be objective. They can be absolutely two-faced. They'll come to your house, they will look around, they will see what they want to see, and you cannot prove or disprove what they've seen. And that's where they catch you out, on that little bit of detail where it's not written in black and white. You can't defend against it in a court of law. And so prejudice, stereotypes and discrimination absolutely get taken in and used as a way of stopping you from home educating. And then the school attendance process used to be a fine. Do you know what it is now? What his proposal is? 51 weeks in jail. Now, that's been deliberately increased to make it a huge problem for parents who are put in the position where their child is put in a school placement that isn't suitable and they don't have the means to get there. So for like myself, I've got Ehlers-Danlos loss, I'm a wheelchair user, I'm ambulatory. So there's no way that every single day I could transport my child for half an hour or an hour to the next available school that they've got a place at and leave him there and then go and do that again later in the day. It wouldn't physically be possible. But if I failed to do it, 51 weeks in jail. And the situation is just so dire that we need to make sure we protect this last little bit of legislation that allows us to opt out of the state and all of its interventions on how we parent, because we need to be the parents. State make terrible parents. They are not qualified to parent. Most of them aren't even qualified to do their bleeding tax returns. If you've seen them, oh my God. So, you know, you imagine handing over the keys to your house and allowing the person who's supposed to be filling in the potholes to run your home and tell you how to raise your kids. And that is in essence what we've got, that situation. They're not qualified at all, and most of them don't have DBS check. There's only one local authority in the country who employ Senkos as their inspectors, and they are known for best practice because of it. Yeah. It's a massive, massive jump to go from someone with 2 GCSEs on minimum pay to somebody who's a Senko, and they don't have the funds for it. They just don't. They do need to use their funds, but the thing is they took away Sure Start centres. They took away midwives. I had to have my child, in a room that was no bigger than what I would describe a cupboard, a cleaning cupboard that I've got down here. It was absolutely disgusting. You imagine those cupboards under the stairs? I had to have my baby in one of those, because the new facilities that they'd built and paid for were sitting there empty because they didn't have the staff to fill it. So they'd spent all that money and time making this beautiful function and you couldn't staff it. So, you know, they're putting the money in the wrong place. We need midwives, we need health visitors, and we need that money ASAP, because they took it away. And then they started noticing more children were getting abused. And the reason they were getting abused is because the children weren't being nurtured and the parents weren't being supported. And all of those support structures were just gone. They're closing breastfeeding clinics and they're charging people stupid amounts of money to use the local hall. So, you know, every single term we're seeing, what was it, Tony Blair's big society plan emerging. And what people don't realise is that it's not the current government that have implemented all of this problem. They are just worsening it. They're not reversing the Sure Start centres being closed. They're not reversing the selling of assets. And they're not reversing the situation with things like water companies and the way in which we govern and parent. And at the end of the day, I don't know how you lot feel, but it's got to this stage where we're on the last little tender hook and we're screaming that's enough.
Yeah. Well, what I actually found, did you see that post I made the other day when we asked AI what it thought of this bill? Its response.
I didn't know.
Interesting. So AI said, from a parent's perspective, the long-term benefits of this bill for the government could be seen as an attempt to increase control and surveillance over children and families, ultimately consolidating power. And they raised some key concerns. So there's a few key concerns. The first one was expanded government surveillance. The compulsory home education register could be viewed as a can't even get my words out right now, a precursor to tighter regulations on homeschooling. It says homeschooling, obviously it meant home education, eventually leading to restrictions or even a ban. And it allows the government to track all children, ensuring no one is off the grid or receiving an education outside state-approved systems. It then went on to say standardisation of ideology. So enforcing the national curriculum in all schools, including academies, ensures the children receiving that uniformed education aligned with the government bias and narratives. And home education is often seen as a way to teach alternative viewpoints, critical thinking, or religious and cultural values that may not align with mainstream policies. And this bill could be the first step in eroding that freedom. The next one was reduction of parental authority. By increasing oversight on home education and limiting parental choice, the government centralises control over education and child rearing. Some might argue this could pave the way for more state intervention in family life, potentially leading to policies where governments dictate more and more aspects of parenting. And then data collection and future tracking. A national register of home educated children could serve as a data gathering tool, allowing authorities to monitor families who choose alternative lifestyles. It could also link to social credit systems, digital IDs, and future government controlled schooling mandates. And then conditioning for future compliance. So by normalising increased government intervention in education, future generations may become more accustomed to state control in other areas of their life, such as healthcare, employment, and even personal freedoms. If families accept this level of oversight in education, it sets a precedent for more restrictive policies in the future. And then it says the bigger picture. So a parent might argue that this bill is not just about children's welfare, but about long-term social engineering, where governments can gain greater influence over future citizens by limiting alternative education and independent thought, increasing databases and tracking systems, and reducing parental rights in favour of state control. And while these concerns might seem extreme to some, they highlight deeper fears about government overreach, loss of individual freedoms, and mass standardisation. And that was AI's opinion on this school bill.
So the reason why a lot of that is not just guesswork, we're not guessing that it might lead to these things. Kate Dixon from the Department for Education stated way back before the schools bill that this was a 3-part plan. Part 1 is to register them because that's the most palatable option out of the 3. Part 2 is monitoring. And part 3 she didn't disclose, but we can guess what it is. So we know it's coming, and we know that if we fail at this hurdle, we're letting ourselves in for a heck of a lot more.
Reminds me of that poem, First They Came For. And they're deflecting from the parents of mainstream children and SEND children by focusing on the home educated children and that angle. And it's deflecting the attention. It's one of them, look over here, not over there situations. And people don't realise how it's eroding parental right of all parents in this country.
Yeah.
The only people that this register would actually benefit are those that have been forced to home educate and no longer wish to, and those who are on school roll and have for years received no educational provision whatsoever. Now, those are the ones that have fallen through the cracks, those that are in plain sight on a register already. And I'm telling you now, a register does not safeguard anyone. It didn't safeguard me. It didn't safeguard Victoria Kalimbe. It didn't safeguard baby P. And it certainly didn't safeguard the child that we've just heard about with Sarah Sharif. And, you know, there have been countless cases where the local authorities have failed to safeguard the most vulnerable members of our society. but they will always turn it on us and say it was our fault because we had the freedom.
Yeah, and it is like that. It's gaslighting, isn't it? It's
exactly. Have an opportunity to stand against all it.
I think as well with kids that go to school, you know, the amount of parents deregistering their children has gone through the roof, and now they're like, oh my god, I can't cope with that. We need to know exactly where them kids are. But what they're not looking at is the reason why people are deregistering, and a lot of that is because SEND needs aren't being met. You know, they've got an EHCP, but still, it's still not that support and provision is still not being put in place. So there's so much that is wrong. They need to fix that first.
Well, it's taken us until, maybe a year or two ago to keep constantly repeating ourselves when they said that there wasn't a register in place. There is a register in place, and every single person who's deregistered from school is automatically, by law, put on it. The thing is, it's supposed to be a voluntary register. If it was truly voluntary, then I certainly would not be on it. I've never deregistered my son from school, and because we came across a different service, they said, oh, you're home educating. Oh, all right. No worries. Take care. And then behind my back sent my data to the local authority and told them about me. I asked the local authority to remove my data as it's a breach of GDPR, and they told me no, they have a duty to identify all children in their area who are being home educated. To which I said, can you show me which section of law that comes from? And to date, they still haven't provided that information. It's been 4 years.
No, it doesn't surprise me, not in the slightest.
I mean, another thing that a lot of parents aren't aware of is the DFE safety valve scheme as well, which is basically, as we're aware, a side issue, they're trying to send children back into mainstream education, and the schools aren't set up for that. But then they brought in the DFE safety valve scheme, and this is basically where the government have turned around to counties and said, if you stop throwing money at SEND resources, we will wipe all your debts to us. And do you want to know how many counties have jumped at that opportunity to have all their debts wiped? So they're forcing them all back into mainstream education, and they're going to be cutting down the funding and resources for those children when they're in mainstream education, even the SEND provisions. And so many people are not even aware that there's a safety valve in place.
It's like trying to fit a massive jigsaw puzzle into a very small space. It's never going to work. There's too many kids that are being forced to be in mainstream because there's not enough STEM provisions. You know, families, not every family can home educate, but they're just not sorting anything out and then blaming the parents for their failings, basically. And it is all about, in my opinion, it's all about control. And then
it's not about the welfare of the children.
No, it's not about the children, not at all. They're not interested in that. It's all about them controlling us, basically.
There's more legal protection for my cat and my dog than there is for my child.
Yeah, there is.
It's disgusting, and it's unfortunately been a reality that I've grown up in. You know, I was a Thatcher baby, and I was born into the years that the registrars were on strike. So nobody's birth, marriage or death got reported for 2 years.
Sorry.
Absolutely awful. I mean, let's be honest. If it was cats and dogs we were talking about, the whole nation would be outside Parliament right now. And obviously cats and dogs are important. I've got my own 2 dogs. but so are our children. And it's not just our children here, it's our great-grandchildren. Our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren. Because as soon as you have given and handed over your rights, history has proven that you very rarely ever get those rights back again. They don't get retained to you. So there's no getting down the line and saying, oh, actually, I regret this decision.
Oh. See, this is poverty, you see. I'm so mean. Look, I've finished my dinner and I just put it down. I didn't put it down on the floor, though.
No.
Absolute discrimination. And then I've got the kitten down here as well. Hey.
Aww.
They're both trying to scrounge my dinner off of me, which is hilarious.
Yeah. I saw something on Facebook the other day, this meme that was going around saying something like, there's no worse stare than when a dog or cat just looks at you intently for your dinner.
I'm immune, aren't I, Digit?
You always want
yes, I'm immune. You've got to wait. He's just done the chin on the chair.
Yeah, that's another trick. Yeah, and the eyes start going.
You can't even see it on camera, but he's got the most gorgeous eyes. He's got little eyebrows just there. Because he's got the terrier in him, but he's got like short bits of terrier. Yeah. And you've got the most beautiful, loving, doughy eyes, haven't you? Yeah, little wells in your eyes. And then you've got your little beard as well for your terrier, which is the only reason why we know there's terrier in you. Otherwise, we'd say you're a collie. Yeah, don't pull the whole thing over. There's a good boy.
I'm going to say, I've got some frequently asked questions about the fine and process in front of me. So don't know if Natalie wants to go through them in greater detail as I work through them. And then, Amy, I'm pretty sure you probably know what the changes are going to be to each of these questions if this bill comes into play too. So we can do it like a bit of a teamwork type of exercise. So the first one on this sheet is, will I be fined or prosecuted if my child is in reception? And the answer here says you can only be fined or prosecuted once your child is of compulsory school age and a child reaches CSA the term after the 5th birthday. For example, if your child turns 5 on the 28th of June, they won't be CSA till the September. And people are asking if there's going to be any changes to that viewpoint with this new bill.
There isn't any change to compulsory school age. I've not seen any bills relating to it. But yeah, it is the term after your child turns 5 until your child turns 16 and has either reached level 3 in their education or they have gone into training or whatever. But it is 16. Lots of people like to think it's 18, but it's not changed. You are advised to remain in some sort of educational training until 18 because it might affect your employment prospects. But compulsory school age hasn't changed. It's still 5 to 16, even 16, 5 to 6. If only it was 5 to 6.
Yeah, definitely.
I know, she's bullying you, isn't she?
The next question is, I've already received fines before the August my child turns CSA age. Are these still counted? This one says, no, fines before the introduction of the national framework are not carried forward. However, if you've already been summoned to court, your LA, your local authority, might skip the fine stage and proceed directly to court. I just want to check that with you, Nat, is that right?
Yes, but what I want to say on that actually is, say for example, in 2016, you were summoned to court and you received a criminal record. Now, that is where the question is still not really being answered because we are now thinking that actually if any more legal action is taken forward, then they might skip that fine stage altogether because they've already been in the courts. It should be a clean slate from like September last academic year, well, this academic year, sorry. But we don't know how that works because they could quite easily go straight to court because you've already been in court, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so it might count as a prior offence.
Yeah, it could well do because...
on that, or of any future changes to that.
Any what, sorry? I missed that.
I'm saying I don't know if Amy knows of any changes to that or anything additional.
Sorry, I missed that. I was dealing with the dog who's begging for his dinner.
So basically it was, I've already received fines before then, are these still counted? The answer was no, fines before the introduction of the national framework aren't carried forward. However, if you've already been summoned to court, your local LA, your local authority, might skip the final stage at the fine stage and proceed directly to the court.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually an advantage to be in front of a judge if you've been discriminated against, because you're still protected by Human Rights Act. So actually, the bit I objected to was that local authorities can put a school attendance order in place without a judge now, and that actually it's the judge that sees you when you're about to be given your jail sentence.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal that they can now, under the new Wellbeing Bill, skip the court process altogether in that respect. So the next one says, the national framework says it's 10 sessions, so 5 days, before a final prosecution is considered. So why have I been fined for 4 sessions, which is 2 days? So local authorities have discretion in how they implement the national framework. Some operate with zero tolerance, meaning their threshold might be as low as 2 sessions for 1 day. So check your LA specific policy. I think that's pretty standard, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is what we are seeing. We're seeing a lot more people that are going through the legal process, even when they have only missed 1 day or 2 days. And we get a lot of people that still think this, big misconception that it will only happen if they miss the 5 days, but that is simply not true. Even though I would argue that it should be, because that is what the national framework said it was all about. It was all about to reduce, end the postcode lottery. But they've not done that, because what they've then done is said to the local authorities, you can make up your own rules and do whatever you see fit. So that's what we're seeing more and more of.
But that actually ties into the next one, to be honest. Why was I summoned straight to court when I should have been fined first, according to the national framework? And the answer to this one is your local authority might consider your child's absence excessive, have a zero tolerance policy, or you already have a history of court summonses. LAs are allowed to implement the policy in their own way. So there's no national framework if they can implement it in their own way.
Exactly. It's just a cover, basically. The only difference with the framework is that they said it must be considered if they miss them 5 days, which don't have to be taken in one block. And it's over a 10-week period. So that's where lates come into that as well. If you've had 3 or 4 lates and then you take 3 days off, then that can all count towards that.
Yeah, no, that's awful.
I know, it's just, honestly, it's shocking. And we've seen so many parents that have been caught out, they might have gone to visit and, a relative that's dying and they have been fined. I mean, it just does not make sense. How is that helping your child to attend school? It's not, it's just causing more toxicity between school and home.
It's teaching and demonstrating and modelling that toxicity as well to the children who are in their care, the very minds they're meant to be nurturing.
Exactly, yeah. It's teaching them that basically you can't be off school no matter what. And even when you're ill, you've got to try and make it into school, because if you don't, we can mark that as unauthorised if your parents don't supply evidence. It's just not teaching our children the right way at all. It's teaching them to be like robots. And that is not how I want my kids to be. And I think a lot of other parents would think the same as well. They want them to think for themselves, to understand that you know, family life is important, and we should be putting that, you know, at the front of everything. Not switching off our emotions, because our emotions are what make us us, and we shouldn't be telling them to shy away from that. But unfortunately, this policy is doing exactly that.
So the next one actually really surprised me. Why have inset days been included in fines when children don't attend school on those days? So if a period of absence includes an inset day, it may still count towards the fine threshold, as it can appear to manipulate the session limit to avoid a fine. Totally unfair, but that's how they're working it. I mean, that's just shocking that the school insist on inset days and then use them inset days against the child.
Yeah, that is what's happening. Like,
that's setting you up for failure.
Exactly, and that is what he's doing. Like, some people have said, like, as parents, I've taken them out on that week where they've got an inset day on the Monday, so they don't miss as much school. You know, I've done it on purpose, so I'm trying to make the most of, you know, them being in school. And this one day that they're not in school anyway, it won't matter. So they'll only be missing 4 instead of 5. But no, they look at that as you're trying to scam them or something. And then we'll send it off for a fine anyway. So you're screwed either way.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. The next one was, what is the 3-year rolling period? So this says you can receive a maximum of 2 fines within any 3-year period. For example, if you fined in October 2024 and then June 2025, any further unauthorised absences within 3 years of the first fine in October will result in a court summons.
Yeah.
So it's accumulation.
Section 19 is the children that we wanted to be included in the bill, and they've actually excluded them. Section 19 children are receiving a provision from the local authority under that section for EOTAS. So they will have tutors and various different activities and things all funded as part of a full-time educational curriculum. However, we actually found out that the majority of local authorities only provide approximately 3 to 5 hours of EOTAS per child, which is well below the national requirement. And, you know, those children are the ones that would benefit from being on the register, because it would show just how much the local authorities are letting them down. No, EOTIS comes after that, under that. Section 19 children are EOTAS. So there's a difference. Not many people know that one. Are you trying to catch me out? EOTAS and EOTIS are using different sections of the children's rights. What? You've had your dinner. I haven't got anything else. I'm being given the guilty look. Did you have any more?
10 sessions in a 10-week rolling period. So this means that if your child has 10 unauthorised absence, e.g. tardiness or an actual absence, within a 10-week period, it meets the threshold for fines or prosecution. The sessions don't need to be consecutive, so they can be spread across different weeks. For instance, if your child is late every day for 1 week, so 5 morning sessions unauthorised, and then has another 5 sessions, 2.5 days, 3 weeks later, that would then meet the 10 sessions threshold in a 10-week period. And it doesn't matter if your child was sick or not, if you don't have that authorisation in place. And keep in mind, a lot of the time you can't get authorisation unless it's 7 days or more. So again, you're set up for failure.
Yeah, it's just shocking, really. But we have seen a lot of that.
What we're currently looking at is the way in which the Children's Wellbeing Bill will amend and contradict other bits of law. And of course, the pupil registration regulations were amended in August last year. And we were quite lucky actually, because we got a legal opinion on pupil registration regulations, and I'm telling you all now, you're extremely lucky we dodged a bullet with that one. They wanted to include a duty for anyone meeting a child in need or more to require permission from the local authority to deregister. So they were going to include that in the pupil registration regulations. And because the legal opinion we obtained said that it would likely be unlawful because it would discriminate negatively against children with SEN, they swiftly decided to withdraw that little bit. And so we're now going back to the same barrister, who's a specialist barrister with SEN, and asking for his opinion on this bill, because this bill is going to add another layer to the legislation we've got. Now, in a specific part of the bill, I can't tell you too much, but a specific part of the bill, it actually contradicts and creates a legal loop.
Who is that? Is that Michael Charles?
No. Steve Broach.
Oh, I've heard of his name actually. Can't think why, but...
So we've raised the funds successfully. We've got £4,800 in the bank account. We are putting together the briefing document. That will go off to Steve Broach. He will then review that using the money that we've raised to pay for it, and he will come back with a full legal opinion from a different angle. So he will look at it from the SEN angle and how it could possibly be discriminatory towards children with specific needs.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a massive bonus. That's going to be a little, you know, in our back pocket, because, you know, lots of people are saying, why are you rallying? What good's it going to do? And it's like, well, you know, the suffragettes didn't just do action. There was also all the admin stuff going on behind, and it requires a two-pronged attack so that we hit it from both angles. And I've got an IPSI trainer. She actually trained all of the Senkos and all of the different people around the country, briefing Steve Broach with us, and we will be able to tell Steve exactly what is currently in place, what we've spotted, and what bits of this bill are causing us the greatest concerns. And if we can point out that it's discriminatory, it has a knock-on effect on all the other laws that will also interweave into it, including the pupil registration regulations, including the data acts that they're looking at amending, including child restraint and all of these other things that they're trying to all review at the same time. So it could be quite a game changer. But I wanted to add that in because the lady in the chat's talking about EOTAS and EOTIS.
No, so the next one, I've been summoned to court and received a hefty fine, but I avoided a criminal record. Right. And the answer is, unfortunately, no. If you've been fined through a court process, you likely now have a criminal record. If you're unsure, review your court paperwork carefully. Is there anything you want to add to that?
We have seen so many people on the group that have said, oh, well, I went to court and I just got the original fine, you know, like this, because it was £60 then per person, per parent. So I've not got a criminal record. It's like, yes, you have. And the amount of people that think that that is not the case is very worrying, because they're not given enough information, and it isn't that clear cut that they do have this criminal record. So there's so many people that probably still are walking around not knowing, because they've just pushed it through so quickly, and a lot of them are done as well by SJP. So they're being sent paperwork just tick a box and job done. And a lot of them don't realise this. And this is the danger as well, because we don't know how much it is affecting jobs, but obviously that will show up on your DBS. I think it's what the actual what is it called? Failure to secure regular attendance at school under section 4441, and that's the offence. But again, people aren't realising that they've actually got a criminal record. They just think they've got away with a fine.
Yeah, it actually says here next, I've received a single justice procedure, an SJP, notice or court summons. Should I plead guilty or not guilty? And the answer says, it's your decision, but ensure you understand the facts. There are only 4 defences. Your child was genuinely ill. A clerical error marked your child absent. Your LA failed to provide transport within a certain radius, or absence due to religious observation, which is only usually allocated to 1 or 2 days. Mitigating circumstances might reduce the penalty, but won't affect the verdict. Regular attendance means every day the school is open. Following the Platt case in 2015, Lady Hale's ruling meant that even if your child has 98% attendance, the definition of regular means every day the school is open. Is there anything you would like to add?
I think not really to that. It's just the fact that Platt case, he went through to the Supreme Court, I believe, and he lost a lot of money. He tried his hardest to fight it, but then that's when that ruling came in about every single day that school is open.
But also bear in mind, if you plead guilty, you will receive the criminal record associated with it.
Yeah.
Even if you just pay the fine and think, I've paid the fine, I'm okay now, job's a good one, you need to check your paperwork.
Exactly, yeah. Make sure, if you're not sure, because there is a lot of people that don't understand it. I mean, I'm not that great, I'll be honest, but I have to learn about it myself and, look into it, ask somebody else that might know a bit more about it, and gain that knowledge. Don't just look at it and go, oh, that's fine, whatever. Make sure that you're educated yourself and that you've looked everything up in detail.
It'll depend on your judge too, really, I guess. It says,
don't rely on other people to inform you. Make sure you've done your own research and due diligence.
Yeah.
You cannot refuse to pay the fine. Not a wise decision. Refusing to pay the fine will inevitably result in court proceedings and the criminal record and higher court costs.
It's not like a parking fine in a private company car park. This is the government we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's important to note this is a criminal offence. This is not a civil case. This is criminal. So don't ignore it, because you'll end up in trouble.
Yeah, it's very, very worrying.
Yeah.
That's right. I'll link arms with you girls just at the picket line, and we'll make sure that they don't get past.
We'll march forward together. So, do you want to provide the summary of what I've got on screen here, Amy? Why we're opposing the bill overall? Like, quickly generalise the reasons?
Yeah, I mean, I went through most of it when I was kind of saying my big bit while you two were disappearing.
I'm aware.
The space. But basically, the bill is going to strip away parental rights for education for certain parents. And of course, the bit that I didn't really expand on was why child protection plans and Section 47 inquiries, and why I've got a problem with that. I mean, some people would say, well, if they're on a child protection plan, they shouldn't be coming out of school because they're high risk. That's not necessarily true. That's the narrative that you have been told to make you want to hate those parents and feel no empathy towards them and no pity. It's actually a real situation where, kids have been involved in pupil on pupil violence, teacher versus pupil, of a SEX nature sometimes, county lines, you know, any kind of situation where a child would then find themselves that they need to be given a little bit extra TLC and support. And of course, the parents asked for help and support. And the way that social services help is they put you on a register and they have meetings about you. It's just what they do. And child protection plan is exactly that. They put you on a list. They have meetings about you. They have meetings constantly of meetings. And they try to come up with the best way to support the child and the family. Now, the situation can sometimes be that child is put back in the same classroom, hi Vicky, with the person who has caused the situation. And so whilst that child is being monitored, if that was to escalate, because that plan is in place, that child cannot then be removed without the local authority giving permission. And as we know, local authorities aren't very quick to respond, and they can be very bad at losing emails and correspondence and not responding. And so if you are a parent of a child in that situation, you're trapped potentially. And without a court order, you've had your PR stripped off of you. So, you know, it's a dangerous situation for those particular children, which is why, you know, a lot of people are sort of saying, well, what's your problem with you know, those children? And that's it in a nutshell. Also, Section 47, I don't know how many people here who are divorced, but I had a Section 47 inquiry ongoing as routine for when you divorce through the family law courts, and the children are wrapped up in that. So during that situation where they are doing an inquiry on you so that they can assess the best situation between two parents that are arguing over contact, you wouldn't then be able to remove your child from school. So, you know, there's lots of situations where as a parent you are supposed to be, or as a person in this country under Human Rights Act, allowed to be innocent until proven otherwise. However, there's a problem with social services in that they've admitted time and time again, they will always presume you are guilty and work back to you might be innocent. There is never innocent with social services. Once there's a question mark over your head, you will always be branded as possibly not quite innocent. And so they have a flipped up idea of how we're going to survey parents. And that has leaked across into other services, the Department for Education, the government, and so on and so forth. But you still have a legal right to be innocent until proven guilty. But by saying that, because you've got a child protection plan, because you've got Section 47, or because you put your child in a state maintained SEND school, I mean, what kind of guilt could be involved in that, or risk? Exactly. None whatsoever. The misinterpretation in the previous law is deliberate. The fact that they're bringing in this new stuff where they presume you are guilty and will strip you of your PR unless you can prove your innocence, that's a complete flip on human rights. And that's where we might actually get them, is that this is a breach of your human rights. But they don't really like human rights. They like to try and pretend they don't exist. Have you noticed that?
Well, certainly, yeah. Well, they wanted to get rid of them for a while, didn't they? So,
yeah.
This is just one slippery step but towards all that.
Well, the UNCRC made a bit of a slip up, or was it UNESCO? I can't remember. But one of those big agencies said, oh, the state should be responsible for the education of the child. And unfortunately, that little slip up then filtered into all of the different governments, and they suddenly went, oh, we should be responsible for all the children. And then suddenly you see the narrative change, and Bridget says, you know, these are our children and we have a responsibility to them.
Is that language again?
Wait, sorry, whose child? I don't remember you pushing her out. You know, if you did, maybe you might not have the figure that you have right now. You might actually have a few scars and a few bits and pieces here. You know, there's a reason why I walk with a hobble. It's because someone forgot there were stirrups attached to the bed. So, you know, I just think that the way that they're speaking is just so wrong. But, you know, there's so much in history that shows us we should not tolerate this. We should not allow this. The problem is trying to get the word out to the parents who are like, oh, don't do politics.
Yeah, that we do get that a lot, because to be fair, I was never a politics person, but now I'm starting to like learn about the different parties and learn that it makes a big difference, and you do have to be involved. You do have an opinion, whether you think you don't, you know. But yeah, politics is, you know, it means a lot, really, and it has a big influence on everything.
Not many people know about Joy Baker in the home educating community, and it's because we've suddenly had this big bubble of intake in the community with COVID, and us, you know, lending all of our support to those parents that were homeschooling, and then going back to home educating, and then welcoming people in and trying to help them out and sort them out, and actually teaching the community, the new people coming in, what our history is, what our culture is, how we operate, is not necessary. What was necessary was, this is what you have to do, this is the paperwork you have to file, this is what you need to say, this is how to protect yourself. And actually what we've done is we've damage controlled. We've gone into emergency fight or flight survival advice, rather than, hey, welcome to the community. So we're going to be doing this today, and you're welcome to join us and meet us in the park, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that really gentle, you know, immersion into it. Instead, it's like a crash course of quick, bang, let's get you in, let's move on to the next one. And it's caused some problems, because we've now got loads of home educators, so we've got lots of numbers, but the problem is none of them know the harm that local authorities can do. Nobody knows about the history, they don't know about the culture, they don't know about not back to school picnics and why they were created. They don't know how much we have fought tooth and nail for 70 years to keep this right. And, you know, when Joy went to court to kind of plead her case, the local authority said that she couldn't home educate because she was A, female, and B, working class. So that tells you exactly why this law has not changed. It's because all the rich folk that do use tutors, and, you know, Boris Johnson, for example, need that bit of the law to help them and support them. So they can't get rid of it, but they do need to try to squeeze us out of it so that the women and the working class don't get the same privileges as the Eton boys. And it's discrimination, it always has been. The wording is still the same in how the LA respond to parents. They still use identical template letters from 1952. So that should tell you something about how the local authority behave. Yes, the earliest recollection we have anywhere of the discussion around home education was Henry Spencer talking to Charles Darwin, stating that education should be from the hearth, from the home, and that homegrown children are free thinkers and that they will grow up to be very much Einsteins because they aren't being restricted by the curriculum.
Yeah.
And you know, to think even back then they were saying we should keep the kids at home and teach them at home because then they'll grow up to be strong individuals. And then we've got all of these wonderful entrepreneurs who are home educating because they see the benefit in it. And you think, so remind me again how home education is not a good thing and how we're weird hippies and we don't socialise our kids. Because that narrative's been taught to every single person since 1944 in order to get you to put your kids in school and not argue.
Mm-hmm. But that also goes back to the Industrial Revolution and why education in schools are brought in the first place as well. Because that purpose has never changed. Right. The reason for schools and education has never changed.
They needed to sell the education system en masse. They needed to be able to say, you know, this is a good idea. This is something that you guys need to kind of utilise, you know. Mums don't have to be at home anymore looking after the kids. Hint, hint. Oh, look, we're all two-income families now. And now cost of living means that we can't drop an earning.
By design.
Wonder why that happened. Might have something to do with brown envelopes and back pockets, but you know, the fact that we've now got 6 think tanks in the last year that have cropped up by various MPs deciding that they're going to siphon certain amounts of funds, it's very concerning.
Yeah, we also don't even know where education's going to be headed. I mean, they've already admitted by 2030 the job market's going to be 90% different to what it is today. The needs of the job market will be different. So what are we currently teaching the needs of the old job market to our children for today in school if they already know it's going to be null and void by the time they leave school?
Yeah, I mean, the things that a lot of people don't realise is that, you know, doing your research has never been more important than it is now. And to young kids that have been to school, doing your research is reading the link or the text or AI Google and giving them the answer. However, it's important to have at least 3 different sources of information so that you can triangulate the real truth, because each person will come out with their own version.
You need to look at the integrity of the source as well and weigh them up against each other too. Yeah.
That should be a big highlight, the current cuts due to lack of funds, yet there are funds for this bill. Yes, so I calculated using EO's base statistic from the schools bill of 9.5 million. And I took all of the freedom of information requests, asking about staffing and membership to ADCS. Because when ADCS started to come on our radar, they started claiming that there had been 9 children who were home educated and abused. Turned out none of them, not a single one of them was home educated, because the NSPCC logs the serious case reviews. There's no policy or structure on how they label it. So this isn't done by a government agency. It's not policed. It's not scrutinised. Nobody can change those labels. So once the NSPCC has mislabeled a case in one situation, the parent was home educated, not the child. So you've got all of these sort of anomalies turning up, and then a think tank turns up and goes, I know, we'll take all of the data and we'll feed it back to the government as fact. Well, there's a reason we've got an Office for National Statistics. You can Freedom of Information request an Office for National Statistics, get the source of information, analyse the statistics yourself, and pull up your own version of whatever you require. However, with a private think tank, you can't do that. You can't Freedom of Information them because they're not a public entity. And so they can quote facts and it can't be scrutinised. You can't say, well, where's your source of information for that? And that's where you end up with issues. So we've got ADCS, Centre for Social Justice. There's one by a female MP who started it up on the street name of where it was founded. And that's standing up for women's rights and women's lib, I think. But I couldn't see anything, you know, on their website to indicate that they were actually anything positive or anything I could FOI. And then we had a Conservative member that didn't like us proving him wrong, who set up his own think tank as well and started putting out his own statistics saying that home educators are abusing children, etc., etc. And so all of these think tanks can then be used as citations when they're creating law, rather than the Office for National Statistics or the Department for Education. So you end up with creating statistics and data specifically geared to what they want it to say and be for policy creation. Very clever.
Really clever, and that's why it's set up and designed that way.
Yeah, there's an MP letter as well, discrimination, from a MP saying,
You're back in 2 seconds.
you can see it on Black Belt Barrister on YouTube, by the way. She said, the government have been misled by the Department for Education and Bridget Phillipson in the way that they have described these bills to the Houses of Commons. And of course, the House of Commons have all bid on this and gone, oh yeah, of course we're all for better security, safety measures and freedoms for academies. What they don't know is it's actually the complete opposite. The Department for Education are actually compromised and they're working for a private company who do something completely different. And they're rubber stamping it as the government going, yeah, with the company's logo and header on the paper. And you're like, that's meant to be from the Department for Education to Bridget. No, I can't stand her either. I found out some really deep, dark bits about her, and she's not a nice person. That's why she's doing this, because of her childhood, her experiences, and what she thinks everybody else should have to tolerate because of what she had to tolerate. Because, you know, bullying's good. It sends you to Oxford. Did you know that?
It's normalised to them, isn't it? It's normalised to them because they were raised in that kind of dogma, well, you know what I mean, environment.
Well, she was actually, you know, from a bad area. And what she said was that it was right for her peers to bully her. It was right for them to do that because it inspired her to get out of that hellhole, to not allow herself to accept that life and to go to Oxford and be a better person. So we should all be bullied into going to Oxford, guys, you know.
Yeah,
just because
it was
that
that
works
easy.
for
Yeah.
her, it doesn't
But what
mean
you
it works
fail
for
to
every
take into
child.
consideration
That's
there
right.
is
Just because it works for her, it doesn't mean it works for everyone. But that's what
each
she's
person's
modelled this
nervous
all on.
system will respond differently. They will have a different nervous system response to even the same situation. So you can be bullied by the same person, the exact same experience, the exact same mirror image of the situation, and your body and your nervous system will process it differently. So yes, some people do fight, some people go into flight, and some people freeze. Oh, bless them.
Got guinea wig now, sorry. They're getting...
Oh, you obviously needed it, Mummy.
No,
Oh.
so cute. What are you doing? Hi.
Well, you know, Bridget was very pleased that she got forced to go to school because going to school was a safeguarding thing for her. It kept her safe and it gave her the warm squishies to go to school. But also the fact that while she was at school, her mum was able to do things like women's lib.
I just can't stand it. You know, before she became the education secretary, there was an article that we dug out that said that she didn't think the school fines should be in place. And then she's done a complete 360 and she's like, yeah, let's make it even worse for parents. She's all for it. So completely changed her opinion. How can you trust somebody that does that? That's what I want to know. How can...
For about 2 years she's been pushing this attendance. And I do wonder who it was that got her to say and do that. But I have my suspicions, like I said, when she did her speech, it was in front of the Centre for Social Justice banner, just as Rishi Sunak was doing the same and announcing that he was going to bring in vouchers for disabled people. So we've already got the purple pound. The last thing I need is a monopoly as well. So I always say to people, the difference between buying a bar stool from Dunham Mill, which was £35, not only has gas to make it go up and down to suit my height, it pivots as well, and it's got nice, soft, squishy pleather padding on it. So I'm not going to hurt myself if I knock my arm on it whilst I'm perching in the kitchen. The NHS stool from my local mobility centre, £85. And to adjust the legs, you have to push in a tiny little button that I can't do. Can't even do it if I use a pen or something because I've not got a fist grip. And then you adjust the height of the legs to suit you, then it doesn't turn. So you're then stuck in that position and you can't move to reach for anything that's in the kitchen. It's a ridiculous system that we've got. Absolutely ridiculous. And the other thing I always tell people is the difference between the knives and forks. So one knife with a chunky handle on it would be £12. Meanwhile, you go to Tesco's and you buy a picnic set with big chunky plastic handles, you get a set of 16 for 12 quid. And that's where you are then trapped, because if you can't even choose to go and find those alternatives, then you're trapped using those suppliers that have been pre-selected to accept those vouchers, and you're stuck. You can't shop around. You can't get what you need.
No, I mean, I was looking for a shower stall, and the actual magazine that the AT sent me, it was so expensive for one of these shower stalls. I went on Amazon and got it for like less than half the price, and it was so much. It looked, it's so much better than what
and more versatile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it fit my needs more so than what that would. So if I was forced into, doing that, well, I'd have stuff that don't help me, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? You need the right tools to
You were really.
Can you come tell my housing association? Because they seem to think that they don't have to follow the Equalities Act of 2010. It's all right. I don't have an opinion or any experience of my own condition, you know.
I know. They think that we don't have a clue, neither. We've lived it. We know more than anyone.
It's all right. It's 9 years and counting now until we actually get my driveway finished.
Really? That's shocking.
They've concreted 2 bricks higher than the damp-proof course and left me with a step where I needed to put my wheelchair across.
I don't know.
If you think about it, though, what you were explaining then about having no alternative choice, it's going to be the exact same situation for parents here when they remove this right to automatically home educate your child and consider other options. They're literally forcing it into a system not only that they control and earn money from, but a system that isn't fit for purpose.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Like the NHS wheelchair service.
A subpar service, basically, for your child, and that's not good enough.
Did I tell you what happened, Liz?
Go on.
The NHS came to my front door and went, ta-da! We've got your new wheelchair, aren't you excited? I went, oh yes, this looks good. And they went, well, it's not quite the right width for you, but let's try it out on you. Oh, actually, it looks fine. All right, have a go at trying to move around the house with it. Oh, look, you can't move the front wheels. And the engineer goes, well, I did tell you you'd ordered the wrong footplate, but you didn't listen to me. They've taken it away, and I'm still waiting for them to tell me when I can have a replacement.
Oh, no.
I've gone out and I've bought the right vehicle for it now. So I've got myself a WAV. The problem is the WAV is really uncomfortable. And, oh, you should have heard how they took my car away as well. It was, you know, autistic people, we get quite attached to certain things, right? That was my first car ever. I'd driven it for 8.5 years. They came up to come and take the car away, and he did a 3-point turn to get it the other way around to put it on the car transporter and mounted the curb. That was indication number 1 that something wasn't right. Number 2 was that he'd already tried to wave me off. So the 2 paired together, I was a bit sus. He tried to reverse onto the transporter and grated the bottom of my bumper on the tarmac. And when he realised that, you know, the car was at too much of an incline, he decided to do a run up. So he went really far forward and then belted it back into the motorcycle that he had on there. Oh, no. And wheel spun my front wheels until they were smoking.
That sounds ideal.
I then pointed out that the overhanging level was actually drooping and actually touching my car and scraping it. They took it away and valued it as £1,250.
That's awful.
I know.
I was absolutely livid because obviously that's my pride and joy. And then, just to make things even worse, they refused to give me a keepsake from it after announcing they were scrapping it.
Oh dear. It's ridiculous.
And the trauma that you get as an autistic person from all of these different things and all of these systems they keep putting in place and then not following, that has caused me more trauma than anything else that has occurred in my life, because you're told you have the right to have access to your property. So you put in for a DFG to get your driveway sorted out and the path sorted out. They tell you that you have the right to it. Then you go and you try and access that right, and they gaslight you and they tell you that it's not your decision. You aren't allowed to be involved in consultation process. You don't have a right to be informed. So when you demand to know, well, what was your decision? Can I at least know that? They send you a picture, to which you go, well, I can kind of see problems with that, but I've already been warned by the OT not to kick up a fuss. So I agreed to it. They turn up, they changed the plan completely, and made a right old mess of my front garden.
It's just not on, is it?
It's not. And the thing is that a disabled facilities grant is using taxpayers' money. So I have a duty.
Because you're disabled, you should just be grateful for what you get.
Yeah, but I have a duty to make sure that that is value for money. And what they've done is they've got cowboys to lay this concrete onto concrete. They've not put an additive in it to stop it going mouldy and slimy. So it went green within 6 months. And because there's no flexible material between each cast, the concrete is basically butting up against concrete and will crack and shatter, which it's already doing. It's been less than a year. They've put a ramp in. I've had to get them to put a gravel pit in down the side because they mismeasured where they were putting the concrete. So it was actually a whole metre out of place. So it was skewed by a whole metre. So they had to put in gravel down the side to make it the right width of where it should have been put. Then they had to come and angle grind all down the side of the ramp because they told me they would put like a scaffolding board to stop my wheelchair going over the ramp and me falling into the chain link fence and unaliving myself. So what they did was they got some paving slabs and concreted them end on.
Yeah.
I said, so you're not even going to round that off then? No, that's what we normally do. Okay, but what you said you normally do is a scaffolding board, and at least with wood, you could kind of chamfer it a little bit. I said with paving slabs, you can't really. And they were this big, full paving slabs, this big. So if I'd have walked down the side where the bins are, put the the bin bag in the bin and tripped over and fallen onto the edge of one of those, I wouldn't be here to tell the tale.
No. Right, sorry, I'm going to have to love you and leave you.
For joining us, love. I'm going to have to get off too.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, so just to remind everybody that in Leeds and Liverpool, we are joining forces. So Leeds, I think, where are you doing it in Leeds?
I can't remember the exact location, but you have got some competition on your hands.
I can't remember where it is, but somebody said.
I'll have a quick look. Because I can't remember 6 locations. I'm not that good.
Liverpool is at St George's Hall, and Liverpool is 12 to 3.
Oh, you found it.
And we're actually being followed by another protest at 3 o'clock for women's rights and stuff as well. Right. So there's quite a few things going on at St George's Hall that day.
Yeah, so I think we're starting at Liverpool around 11, aren't we, hoping to?
No, 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock Liverpool.
Right, yeah. And Leeds, I know that the school finds is at Albion Place, but Incy let me know where it was yesterday, but oh, hang on, I've got it here. Oh, I am silly sausage. Oh.
They told me, but they've not updated it on the event.
Here we go, Victoria Gardens, outside the gallery.
Sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, so Leeds, Victoria Gardens, and at Albion Place, and Liverpool at St George's Hall / Plateau. So all from either 11 or 12 o'clock, isn't it, on Saturday, the 8th of March. So please do join us. Share the posters that the home eds have put out as well, and mine that I've got there. So if you just can share it as much as possible, we need as many people coming together for this.
Yeah, we need to show that we support each other as much as we do, you know, any person walking by on the street, because, you know, this isn't a us and them thing, you know, in regards to whether you attend school or not, especially as this bill includes children with part-time school timetables and those that are on flexi schooling as well. So, you know, those things all are affected as much as those who are attending school full time. And, you know, if we let them pick on the little people first, then they'll be next at your door. I promise you that they'll be next at your door. They've already said things like, well, we aren't supervising the nutritional value of the food being provided to children, so we'll have to make sure that we're doing supervision orders during the summer holidays. So there's lots of little, you know, hints that they're going to be bringing extra bits in. They've already stated that they're going to bring in statutory guidance. This was in response to Greg Stafford. Statutory guidance, and that parents and home educators will be invited to a roundtable event to consult before they implement it. So they're already saying that the way in which they've written this bill and the legislation, they're not quite happy enough with. They're going to add some extra bits in. And someone said, oh, well, isn't guidance just, you know, interpretation? Not when it's statutory guidance, because that's what the pupil registration regulation changes were. They supersede everything that's gone before them.
Sorry, I'm
Don't panic, it's fine. We're parents, we're completely used to it. In fact, it's a lovely sound. I love hearing those sounds.
He's just as if he's on
something had happened until you pointed it out. I'm not used to background noise.
I know. Oh, I like that though on my head. Do that again, please, Alfie. Not about
to
right,
Mummy's
well,
head,
I'll let you
Mummy's
walk out,
eyes.
and we hope to see everybody on the 8th of March. It would be great to see as many people there as possible, standing united as parents across the nation. That's what we need right now. It doesn't matter what is your education philosophy, how you educate your child, how you choose to, doesn't matter. This bill has implications for us all, and we do need to stand united on that.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. The other, can you just let me speak a sec, please? The other locations for Fight School Fines as well is in Nottingham, Southampton, Durham, and Norwich, I've remembered. And I know you're doing one in London, aren't you, and Exeter?
So we're doing one in Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, London and Exeter.
Yeah, brilliant.
And the way I remember that is I look at the map in my head and I tick them off as I go down.
Right, well, take care, everyone. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Lovely to speak. Bye.
Yeah, bye.